Welcome to Brandy Arnault Fine Art. Here you see an upside-down version of a failed bunny painting. I don't know, I think I'm going to change to a new panel. And I'm so glad I did change to a new panel. You just saw a photo of the completed second attempt. What I'm going to do is a different pose. I don't know if it's going to work. So let's see. Again, frame lines. In the photo source, the bunny is on an angle, so I'll draw that in first. And so here I'm dividing the canvas into thirds so I can better place the bunny. So I took measurements with my brush to see how many heads the bunny was. This first attempt of mine, the head is too big. You just saw me measuring out that the body of the bunny is 2.5 times the size of the head. Of course, in real life, the bunny probably measures a lot more than 2.5 heads, but this is for this pose with this photograph. And now I'm marking in where the arm is and where the leg is. And then next is the block in. Don't want to build up layers like what I did here before. I want this to be on the smoother side. So I really should probably have it thinned out more. And like any oil painting, I am starting with my darkest dark areas. With my next value, you see that I'm pretty vigorously applying the color. This is called scumbling or scrubbing in. And I'm liking the texture that it's leaving. It reminds me of this bunny's fur. Is now that I realize I need to correct the placement of the lower ear. That looks a little better. I think I want to work on the eye. Now I'm measuring the placement of the eye, again using the handle of my brush to get the correct angle. I'm lining it up with the bottom of the ear and seeing how it lands basing it on how it lands with the photo reference. I'm just mimicking how it lands on the photo reference. I'm making this part of the eye darker because the bunny's eyelid and eyelashes would cast a shadow. Now I'll detail out the markings around the eye. We want that eye to feel like it's in the socket, that it's set in and not painted on top. So here I'm going to suggest some bone structure by lightening up that little area around the eye. I'm beginning to develop the hair pattern around the bunny's face. And while I'm doing this, of course I'm using brush strokes, but I'm also cleaning that brush after every passage of paint that I apply. I clean that brush really well by just wiping it off with a paper towel. That is to ensure clean color. And if you watch carefully, you'll notice there is varying pressure applied to the brush. So sometimes I'm almost like just whispering the brush across the area that I'm painting, and other times I'm really applying pressure. That is to get a variety of brushwork. So I adjusted the highlight. The highlight in the eye really needs to be very close to the upper eyelid. And by the way, there was no highlight in the photo reference for this little bunny's eye. But to bring life to it, I put the highlight there. That's called artist's license. Well, I'm satisfied with the eye, so now let's develop the rest of the bunny. Trying to get that mottled fur. This bunny has fur that is darker underneath, and then it's got some lighter color that pushes through. And I call that mottled, but I don't know really the technical term for this bunny's pattern other than he's just so cute. And this bunny is an indoor bunny. He is a pet, and he has a lot of people that love him, including a little boy. The pictures that were sent to me features the little boy also, but this is strictly just a bunny portrait. So you notice that there's a difference in color here with the ears. It's not that they're two different colors, but what it is the bunny has his ears facing away from the middle of his head. So they're on either side of his head is the opening of his ear. So that's why you see the one ear black and this ear being worked in a little bit lighter, because it's really the inside of his ear that's showing. Let's move on to the rest of the bunny. I've judged that the color that I'm putting down now is probably the base color of the bunny, of his all over fur. This is the base color. So now we have some areas that are in the light. So we're painting that lighter to indicate that. And then you'll see a variety of colors going down. That is to indicate the broken up pattern in his fur in some areas that are much lighter, or like white tips on his fur. It's very hard to paint that, and I just want to suggest it because let the viewer's brain and eye make up the rest of the information. Notice that the brushwork is very, very light. I am hardly putting any pressure. This is to assist with blending the colors that I'm putting in the fur now. Suggesting the placement of the front paws. And that's because I'm going to do some of the work on the lower part of the painting where the bunny is resting. I'm thinking of making a cloth, or a suggestion of a cloth. So I'm actually starting with where there would be a bit of a shadow cast by the body on the bunny. I am extending that darker color lower than the cast shadow would be, and that's just to indicate the dark part of the folds. And because I can't stay on one task too long, I am now proceeding to do the upper part of the background. I'm also completing the block in, which means I'm paying attention to the values of each color that I'm putting down. Right here is where I want the viewer to look first, so I'm putting the lightest light next to the darkest dark. I am careful to have a lot of paint on the brush and not blend it in too much. And when I say blend in, I mean actually work the pigment in too much. If you do that, you will get dark spots. Why? Because you got mud. You worked in the top layer too much into the layer that was underneath, and therefore you get mud. So you have to make sure at this point when you're painting something like a background that you have a lot of pigment on the brush and that you're not pushing too hard on it. A little bit more work on the fur. Now we're going to get into creating the cloth. A measurement for leveling the table. I just have just a tad bit. Let's have the bunny rump covering part of the tail. Painting it lighter because lighter colors come forward. Time to really develop the background colors. I'm really laying it on thick. Let's spike some of the bunny's fur here. And now for final details. I am so glad I started from scratch because I'm done. It's done. I'll sign it. Maybe I'll just darken through here first because I do see a dark area there. Okay, that ties it all in together. Be sure bunnies have whiskers. Just in case he does have some. Just like that. That's it. Well done.